Additive synthesis is the last of the exotics that we're going to touch on here. And again, like FM, it's important to note that while additive has a lot to offer, it's most often placed into an instrument architecture that feels a lot like a subtractive synthesizer, with filters, envelopes, and routings all taking on fairly typical roles in the shaping of the sound. So, don't necessarily ignore all the things that we've already talked about once you discover the power of additive synthesis. Everything that we've already learned is still going to be useful. Additive synths operate on the principle that any sound can be broken down into a series of constituent sine waves at different pitches and volumes. These sine waves are referred to as partials, and the partials form the basic building blocks of sound. It's very easy to confuse additive and FM, and theoretically there's a lot of crossover. Both techniques of synthesis involve adding things together to make a more complex sound. Both start with simple waveforms. Both can emulate the sounds of filter sweeps, etc. within the oscillator section of each synth. But the main differences exist in the interaction of these simple waves, and the easiest way to explain this is by looking at where the waves go. In an FM synthesizer, we had operators acting as modulators or carriers. A modulator's output would be sent to a carrier's input, creating frequency modulation and sidebands. The carrier's audio would then be sent to either a filter or directly to the synthesizer's output. In an additive synth, instead of creating sidebands and harmonic complexity by modulating the frequency of a carrier by a modulator, we instead modulate the amplitude of the harmonics directly. The harmonics are produced by a multitude of sine waves, usually at least 32 or 64, sometimes up to 128 or more. The tuning of these multiple sine waves are based on integer values stemming from a fundamental frequency. You don't need to worry too much about this, though. By controlling the volume of the harmonics, we can directly influence the complexity of the resulting waveform. The higher the volume of the higher pitched harmonics, the brighter the sound. Let's look at operator. When we dial up a sawtooth wave under the selector and then look at the oscillator display, we can see a bar representation of different partials combining to make the resulting saw. As we remove the higher partials, we can see and hear a few things happening. First of all, the sound is becoming duller. Again, like with FM, with fewer of these high-frequency harmonics present, it begins sounding more like our oscillators being passed through a low-pass filter. If we select the same wave to start with again, and start removing the lower partials and the fundamental, we start getting the equivalent of a high-pass filter. So these are very basic examples of additive at work, but they show off some of the flexibility. Modulation of partials through envelopes or LFOs may be possible. In operator, because we can't actually control the volume of these partials within a single oscillator, multiple oscillators can be utilized taking up different parts of the harmonic spectrum to obtain more complex results. In this example, we're going to take two identical waves and split the partials. Operator A will handle partials 1 and 2, and operator C will handle from 3 up. We can add an LFO to the volume of operator C, and this will simulate a low-pass filter being controlled by an LFO. Additive synths can produce tones and sounds which can't be produced with other synthesizers, and is regarded as being one of the holy grails of synthesis. It is extremely complex, however, and as a result, additive synthesizers most often adhere to the same kind of architecture as what you'll be used to from subtractive synthesizers, even though it actually compares a little bit more to FM. Additive synthesis really opens up when you get a chance to actually modulate the partials using complex mod sources like LFOs and envelopes. In Native Instruments Razor, these kind of modulations are set up to be easy to access, which we're going to look at in the next video.